What's up, y'all? Dylan Foss back with the Limitless Parent Blueprint. Today, no topic other than recapping Hyrox Miami 2026. I'm going to just run you through it. I'm going to do it kind of interview style. I got some questions and give you guys some feedback on my experience. Make sure you understand what it is. And let's dive into it. So Hyrox is a international fitness competition. And if you are familiar with like DecaFit, which is something I used to do a lot of, which is a decathlon, 10 exercises partnered with either no running, running a tenth of a mile in between each exercise, or running 500 meters between each exercise. And those are like the smaller, easier, we'll say like baby versions of Hyrox. Hyrox is, think of that mixed with CrossFit. Excuse me. So the idea being that if you can be a hybrid athlete, you can run really far, you can lift heavy things, and you can do things metabolically that are very challenging. You can do that for a long period of time, and you can do it very fast. So DecaFit, the concept is do it as fast as you can. Most CrossFit competitions, you have to do a set number of exercises with a set number of reps and running, and you're doing it for time. The competition is based on whether you're male, female, and what level you're competing at. But Hyrox has um, a solo, you're doing it on your own. They have a doubles and they have a relay. Within those, they have, men's and women's weights. They have a mixed doubles, which would be men, male and female. You only compete against other teams of male and female. Then they have men only, they have women only. And then they have relay, which is kind of the same concept. You can do a medley of different people, but the idea is that you have 8 stations and 8 kilometers of running. You run a kilometer, you do a station. You run a kilometer, you do a station. Eight of those, and it's challenging. Okay, so the stations are 1,000 meter ski erg, 80-yard sled push, 80-yard sled pull with a rope, 100 yards of burpee broad jumps, 1,000 meters of rowing on the concept two, 100 meters of farmers carries with kettlebells, 100 meters of sandbag lunges, and 100 wall balls with like 14-pound med balls. You run 1,000 meters in between each one, which is about which is 8 kilometers, about 5.2 miles. The world record for context is 55 minutes. It took me 1 hour, 44 minutes, and 41 seconds. Let's talk about it though. Let's talk about it. So going into race day, what were my expectations for my time and how did my body feel? I've heard random other people's time. My sister and brother-in-law, shout out Haley and Alfredo, I've done a bunch of them. And I basically wanted to do something hard and expose myself and give myself something to work up towards. Based on some of the times that I had heard from them, my estimated time was going to be about 135 to 145 was my goal. And I snuck in just at the end of that. I felt terrible going into it. So the day before, I woke up in the morning, I ate my normal smoothie and coffee for breakfast, and I did not consume any other food throughout the day. I barely even drank water. Only thing I did do was get an IV at Vivea Wellness over here in Boca, so shout out to them. But I did not feel good. Turns out my wife didn't either. Amy didn't feel good. She had cooked us these chicken burgers the night before, and for whatever reason, they did not sit well with us. They were not good. I felt sick to my stomach, wanted to throw up the whole day. That was Friday. Woke up Saturday, kind of forced myself to eat. Didn't feel great, but felt better than the day before. Wasn't nauseous. Didn't feel like all the food that I was eating was stuck in my throat. Long story short, the biggest thing that I think saved me was going to the bathroom twice before my actual race. I did have oats, I had my coffee, I had plenty of water and electrolytes, and I had my smoothie, my daily smoothie. So the day of the race, I felt better, especially once I went to the bathroom like 30 minutes before my race time. What did my training actually look like leading up to this, and what would you do differently if I had to do it again? Candidly, I didn't really train at all for this. Maybe a few months ago, I was doing like mini decas on my own, but I was not doing anything specific to Hyrox. We don't have a ski erg here at Summit. I definitely did some more rowing and biking than I normally do. But once again, I've been so busy with work and clients that I wasn't doing anything outside of normal 30 to 45-minute lifting sessions. My biggest thing was running. I went on maybe 5 runs before the race, all about a mile. And I did one day at the FAU track where there's a group of Hyrox people who go every weekend and train. And I went there and did that group training around the track, which was, I think we ended up running about 4.5 miles that day. So that definitely got me mentally just prepared for how much running I was going to have to do. If I had to do it all over again, um, I would integrate more running. I would integrate more basketball into my regimen. I would definitely do more Hyrox-specific, like the stations themselves. Yeah. I think, obviously I could get a lot more in depth with that, but um, I would say I would lift for the 2 or 3 months beforehand. I would do like 2 days of lifting and 2 days of like high rocks, high intensity interval stuff. I think that's how I would go into it. Walk us through the race. What was the moment where you realized, okay, this is going to be harder than I thought? After I did the skier, I crushed it. I felt good. I was like taking a nice slow pace on the runs. I got to the sled push and I did one full lap. So we had to do, for context, 20 yards there, 20 yards back, 20 yards there, 20 yards back. I pushed the full 20 yards there with the 335 pounder, I think it is, on the sled. And all of a sudden, my legs had all the blood in them and my brain, my head had nothing. And I was like, holy shit, I got to take a second. And yeah, it ended up taking me a while. I ended up splitting up the next two 20-yard gaps, and then I did a final push for the last 20 yards again, all the way through. I started to get some slight cramping in my stomach at one point, but the hardest moment for me physically was when I was doing the walking lunges, the sandbag walking lunges, and my quads seized up. So both my VMOs, the medial vastus medialis obliquus, your that little teardrop muscle on the inside of your knees, both of those seized up, so I couldn't bend my knees. That was not fun, and I had to stop. I walked over to the side next to Alfredo, and I dropped the bag on the ground, and I was telling him what was happening. I started massaging my legs out to try to get them to relax for a second. And the judge came over and was like, "Hey, you're not supposed to drop the bag. That's supposed to be a 15-second penalty technically. Did you know that?" I was like, I didn't know." He goes, "All right, well, this is your warning." So I took my time not having the bag on on my shoulders, and I massaged my legs out, and I threw a little. I had like a DoTerra breath mint drop, and I strategically had that in my pocket. So I tossed that in, and there's some sugar in there, so I'm sure that helped a little bit. And I kept doing the walking lunges, but when my quad seized up, that was definitely like an oh shit moment. Was there a point where I really had to dig deep mentally to keep going? Yeah, it was definitely just the wall balls at the end. I was very like happy-go-lucky, like smiling, saying hi to random people, uplifting other people that I saw struggling the whole time. It brought me back to kind of like basketball, where I became that like leader on the court, and that was cool. And then during the wall balls, I went into like the demons. I kind of like got into my own head and was just trying to finish. I knew I had to push. I had to dig really deep. So that was the point in which that happened. I started self-talking, like, "Who are you? You know, what are you made of? Your kids are watching. Like, let's go. Give it your best shot," kind of thing. Um, Looking back at my 144 finish time, what do you think you did really well and where did you lose the most time? So, on one of the runs, I definitely lost time because I went pee. So on like the backside of the track, I stepped out of the track and went to the bathroom. So that definitely added some time. Um, the running was my least effective area. I decided to walk in and out of the rocks zone. So every time you get into the in tunnel where the exercises are, I would run to my exercise, but I always walked from my exercise back out to the track. So if I had ran out of each exercise, I probably would have, saved time, but it was time for me to catch my breath. Not that I was cardiovascularly like super taxed at any point, but just like overall muscular fatigue in the legs caught up to me. But I did really well on the farmer's carry. I picked those things up. I didn't put them down the entire time. I did my 2 laps and I basically ran the entire 2 laps. A lot of people weren't doing that, at least in the open, which I was going in. One mistake or oversight you made that someone listening could avoid. If I had to give you a takeaway. I don't know. I don't know that I made any mistakes. I just don't think I trained enough for it. But I'll tell you this, what I saw a lot of people doing wrong was rowing and ski erg. They were trying to go way too fast on their poles and they weren't doing strong enough, powerful enough pulls. So you want big, strong, long pulls on both the rower and the ski erg, and you want to let that fan, you can hear that fan when you're pulling it. It's like a manual engine, right? You want to hear the RPMs go up, and as they're coming down, you want to pull again. Up, and as they're coming down, you want to pull again. Don't just constantly like herky jerky go. How did balancing being a dad, running your business, and training for high rocks actually feel, and was it realistic? The context of not really training for high rocks, like I said, what would have been more realistic is doing a high rocks around summertime when my schedule is less chaotic. Also, doing high rocks when I don't have a 6 month old baby would have been more realistic, but it's totally doable. You know, I obviously think the most elite people there are probably not busy dads running businesses. They're probably a little bit younger, probably don't have kids, probably train for this stuff 24/7 or at least 7 days a week, even if they do have a job. So it definitely, gave me a run for my money, but I very much know my body and I knew what I felt like going into it and I knew how to pace myself. I could have pushed myself to the point where I wanted to throw up or where, even today, 4 days later, I would still feel terrible, but I didn't. I knew that like I could keep a good pace and do what I did. So that's what I gave it and that's how I ended it. What did this experience teach you about your fitness, your mindset, or even how you approach training moving forward? I think it shows that like my regular training still keeps me pretty fit and pretty mobile, pretty agile, hybrid. I can adjust to a lot of things. I can go play basketball, I can lift heavy stuff, I can move things. That's what I want to keep, but I could definitely increase all of that stuff. My mindset is still there. I could, go to the dark side a little bit more. I don't do that as much as I used to, digging into those demons and really digging deep into who you are. So that's something that I definitely can do more of. Yeah, let's go. All right. This is a rapid fire yes, no, real quick, one or two answer questions. So, hardest station, walking lunges for me, just because my quad seized. Easiest station or least painful, farmer's carry. One moment you thought, why did I sign up for this? I didn't have that moment, honestly. A song that would have saved you mid race. Should know to Fort Minor. Remember the name. There you go. One thing you'd do differently next time. Train. Are you doing another High Rocks? Yes or no? Yes, I'd definitely do another one. My goal is an hour and 30. What hurt the most the next day? My traps hurt and um that was from it's gotta be from wall balls. My traps hurt and my quads, my VMOs. Would you recommend High Rocks to busy parents? Most busy parents who don't have like a really good baseline fitness level or aren't ex-athletes, no. A high chance of injury, training too much, yeah, no. Would you recommend to most busy parents? No. To people who have an athletic background, to people who really understand their body, people who have been training for a decade, sure, absolutely. Competition, pushing yourself, that stuff is good and it's fun and it is far more safe and effective than CrossFit and stuff like that. I just want to give a shout out to my family. If my kids weren't there, if my wife wasn't there with my kids, if my sister and brother-in-law weren't there with my wife and kids, I would not have been able to accomplish any of that. They kept me going without a doubt. It was them, and can't thank them enough for that. So nothing like seeing your son watching you suffer and like cheering you on, getting to give him high fives and stuff was like definitely my Mike's special juice, my Mike's special stuff there at the end to keep me going. If you've been thinking about doing something like this, a race, a challenge, getting back into shape, you don't have to start with high rocks. There's other things you can do, but I definitely do recommend challenging yourself every once in a while, at least once a year, maybe twice a year. You just need a starting point, and if you're looking for some feedback on what that starting point should be, feel free to reach out and I can help you figure that out. Until next time, live limitless. Peace.